Hello everyone and welcome to our Circle and Salve Women. For today we're going to talk about what they don't know. And it's interesting because as a mother of five, you go through such a process of finding you amidst the roles that you play, being a mother, being a wife, being a friend, being a child, and just everything that you do, you really have to ask yourself for the guidance of doing it right. And yet sometimes you don't always know what right is, and you just have to follow your heart. My papa used to always say that God is love, love is God, and therefore God is in your heart. And so as I teach my children, just to continue to be in that manner of thinking, because sometimes we are inundated with so much of this world, and we don't always know sometimes what it is that we are being directed to do. And I always feel that you just have to be okay with yourself in your heart. And sometimes that's a struggle, because sometimes when you're around people that make you believe that they know what is right and what is right for you, you all of a sudden find yourself just mixed up in the world of your role and what it is that you need to be sometimes. And as a mother, that can be, a challenge, because you're always trying to be the superhero for your children. You want them to see their greatness through you. And sometimes you feel like I've got to be strong all the time, and sometimes that strength can really be put to a test. So I remember being in the cenote and a sinkhole, and it's one of those things that my husband had discovered and said, this is another must do. And we're always trying to push through our own fears, right? And believing in through our strength we can really show that yes, we can, even though sometimes we're so frightful of what it is that we're about to do. And yet when we overcome it, we give each other a high five and said, okay, that one's done. And so definitely a sinkhole was one of them this summer. And so when my younger two accompanied us or were part of this journey, it was amazing to really overcome, first of all, having to go down into this deep, just like really natural pit, and just all of a sudden you see this waterfalls and just immersed with water at the bottom. Just an incredible feeling to be down there. And yes, everyone had life vests, which I thought was a really great idea, to make sure that it was required. Our children, we have been bringing life vests with our children, even on the plane, and that's just us. We're okay with being us, But here we were like, okay, you know what? They could actually already have theirs, and they're totally okay. But it was nice that my husband and I had ours as well. And the amazing feeling was just being down there and feeling like, we've got this. And arriving to this just down there with the waterfall and the waters, and seeing everybody else enjoying themselves and then doing their thing, and how they were going to create their own memories. And so for us, once we were down there, I was more fixated on my younger two and the experience that they would get and the memories that they would then end up having done this. And so right away I was like, okay, I'm going to get in the water, but I'm going to make sure that at least our children were going to have that opportunity to get in the water. And we were just so like preoccupied with all the many things that we were going to get to do very briefly, because for us it's like once we did it, then we could just enjoy the moment and be just engulfed in the thought of having done it, that when we were able to capture one of our children being in the water, and then by the time that our second one was in, it was like, okay, we did it. But then we're like, oh no, video, I mean, was it rolling? Was it continuing to go? And it was totally okay. But the interesting part was we missed our younger child being in the water, because all of a sudden while we're in the water, my child was like, you know what, Mom, how come you're not up there? And he pointed out this one part where you go up some steps, some wooden steps amidst the central part of the cenote. And then people would jump from this, this ramp to get back into the water right by the waterfall. And it's funny because in my younger days, probably that would have been the first thing I would have noticed. And that would have been the first thing that I would have done without children, and then just going right into it, but I could not explain to our youngest son. It's like, I was focused on you guys, and it didn't really dawn to me that there was even this part here that I could have done. And I looked, and right away I said, no, that's okay. Maybe next time. And he looked utterly confused, like, why? And it was one of those that after, and I mentioned in my article, when my husband and I went around for our walks in the neighborhood, and perhaps maybe a week later, a few days later, when we returned back from the trip, where I was able to express to him in my own way of like just cracking jokes and thinking what he didn't know was really, I was here, I'm thinking to myself, if I were to do this, and instantaneous, like in my mind, it's like it was more of keeping myself safe so that I could focus on keeping my children safe. And that's that mother eagle in you. You're just thinking to yourself, I have to focus on you guys. I'm not going to sit here and use that as an excuse for my children, because my children are not going to think of it in that manner. They're probably thinking, why aren't you doing this? As I saw it in his eyes. And so for me, it was interesting because I could then be truthful to my husband and thinking, if I had gotten hurt, I would have ruined the trip for everyone. Here I am in a different country, and then I would have had been admitted into a medical center, and then they would have had to check me out, or who knows if they would have had to pull me out. I mean, we're down in the deep pits of the sinkhole. And so there were just so many things that I felt responsible in doing right, that I had to set myself aside automatically. Now, 10 years ago, I also mentioned in the article when my same youngest son had asked me this question about the cenote. It's funny because he had just been born, and I recall my husband being at shore with our youngest two when I took on the challenge of going with our daughter. And at that time, I knew, in my heart, I could tell I was too, once again, secretive about my own emotions of just having two kids, two younger babies, 1 year after another. And all you could say to yourself is, one day again, I will be able to take a nap and just be relaxed. And my younger daughter doesn't ever notice, and I don't know if she ever heard me mention it, maybe one or two conversations where I remember when she was young, and probably about the age of 3, I had woken up from a nap, like a 30-minute nap, because I remember looking at the time like, oh my goodness, that was a 30-minute nap. And because I woke up hearing them joyfully just playing with one another downstairs. And so it was funny because it was the very first time I had gotten a nap in the 3 years that she had been born. And funny thing is I actually woke up hearing them just cheerfully playing with one another, and then all of a sudden I was like, that was a nap. And so those are the sacrifices, the joyful sacrifices that you make, that you become comical about, because that's part of life, that's part of parenting. You're an eagle, and then you're just so ecstatic that you got to even close your eyes and actually perhaps rest. And so here I am in the waters with my daughter, and this was so important because I knew that it's being the baby of the home, and then all of a sudden finding that your older brother, and then now eventually your other sister is going to be going off to college. You're finally having the time with your parents to yourself. Yet here comes the younger two. And so all of a sudden you were the youngest, and now immediately the middle child. And so it was important for me to really go in and be in the water with her and to create this memory, because I didn't want it to be a memory of, mom said no. And it was just something where I recall in my article mentioning that it was like my body was like, my heart, my mind, my body, and my spirit were like all immersed in the sun, just taking in the sun with my husband, my children, as our younger two, as we were watching, getting to see our daughter going out in the water. And here it was, it's like all of a sudden I was offered the opportunity to be out there again with her, or out there with her. This would have been her second time. And so here I am. I felt like my heart, my mind, my body, my spirit kind of rose up and said, run that by me again. Did you just hear what they were like, having this conversation amongst each other? Like, did you just hear what I thought I heard? And all of a sudden when my daughter said, yes, mom, you should, it was like my heart, my mind, my body, my spirit, once again, they just surrendered. They knew that as soon as my daughter had spoken, I had already made up my mind. I was already there. And it was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And here I am out in the water. And, whatever reason, my body was definitely not prepared. And it was interesting because I had just had our son, and our youngest, and it was, my body was just telling me it doesn't feel the way like it used to. And perhaps because my body was still trying to recover, who knows. It was like, okay, here I am out there in the water, and normally I wouldn't think nothing of it. And I look at my daughter, and I still remember saying to myself, I gave you me, because I could see in her just this energy, this joy, this like fearlessness of being out there. And she was just yelping, and all of this energy that I could see, that made me happy for her to have, because she really was out there free out in the water and just having such a great time. And I remember hearing her and just thinking to myself, like, just my spirit living vicariously through that, and thinking to myself, regardless of what I look like, regardless of how I'm feeling, look at her. She's having a really wonderful time. And that's all that mattered to me. That was priceless. But I remember, having the now, then the go faster. And I remember giving myself the thumbs up. And as soon as I gave the thumbs up, I felt the engine of the boat like jolt, and all of a sudden the inner tube jolted, and the back of my neck, I mean, just with instantaneously, like, just snap back. And I had never felt that before, and right away it was like, okay, keep yourself steady, keep yourself going, you're fine. And I don't recall all the rest. I just throughout the ride and whatever was left, I hope to have managed to smile. I hope to have like faked it until I made it, because all I thought to myself was, what did I just get myself into? I have my 2 babies back there that still need me. And that was, I knew that at that moment, if my daughter had asked me to do it again, I would, because the moment was really dedicated to her, and this was me saying, I'm going to do this with her. But yet it was interesting, because when I had time to think about it, and here I am coming back to shore, I was so happy to have created that memory with my daughter, and having that now, part of it is like a check-off thing. You know what? You can now say, I was out there with you. And that was it. But seeing the eyes of my babies that were still at shore, it was to no one's business. But in my heart, I was like, I am going to have to make sure that I am still here for them. And what silliness did I just put myself into, that to put that in a compromising situation. And not to anyone's, again, knowledge and communication. I mean, I'm shared some things that my husband and I have put ourselves through all the time, because we're always checking off things to push through anything that we say we can do. There's I didn't mention this in my article, perhaps one day I'll mention it, but we went into one of those Ferris wheel, the ones by the water, the gigantic, gargantuan ones, and he did that. And he is, of all people, like, afraid of heights, and he does these things for me because he knows I enjoy them. But it was like something we check off, and I saw in his face, I couldn't even videotape that moment. It was just one of those things that you're not going to, just like the water experience. It was just one of those things. Is like, okay, you did it, but I saw in his eyes that he felt being the protector of the home, and he mentioned it. It's like, I couldn't protect my family if anything were to happen. And it's just those moments where you're an eagle, you're not made to be a chicken. So you're always, and I mentioned that in my article, where it's okay to sometimes say no, and sometimes people just don't know why you have given your answer in many things, and how strong you are, how willing you are to just do the joyful things in life and the fearless things in life. And because you push through your fears, you've gone through so many things that people don't even need to know that you've gone through. And you look back and go, you know what, that doesn't mean that I've made myself to be a chicken. It just, what I am giving you is my care, my love, and my protection. And I know perhaps you're confused to see me in a different light and wondering why I haven't pushed through. Here I am. I could have jumped onto this ramp easily without anyone thinking about it, And I say to myself, one day there'll be many, many other sinkholes, you know, or yet maybe another one. And my husband and I have already thought of, you know, yet another one to check off. And you know, it's okay to keep yourself safe for the love of your children. And it's okay that no one knows why you have said no or why you have chosen differently from what others probably anticipated that you would have just gone and pursued. But at the end of it all, you have this responsibility. And I know that you haven't changed as an eagle. You know, you're not made to be a chicken. And let the chickens be the chickens. But the eagle can say, I've got this nest to take care of. And that's all right. You know, doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, right? So in the words of my mother, God bless us all, do you. It doesn't matter what it is that you seemingly are afraid of. You have your reasons. Doesn't mean that you won't overcome those fears in the long run. You have your reasons. Doesn't mean that all of a sudden, you know, tomorrow you won't you just get up and say today's a day. But when that day comes to overcome those fears, it'll be on you to go, I'm ready. This is me and I'm ready to pursue it. And you know, it's going to be that moment where you go, okay, I've checked it off. So you checked it off. Maybe you haven't checked it off today, but you will. And that is your plan. That is to your understanding. And again, funny thing is people don't really need to know what it is that you've made a decision to do and what it is that you've made a decision not to do. In time, you will be the one to make that decision. You don't have anyone else to really prove to other than your faith and your belief in the strength that you've been given to know when is the right time when your heart tells you to. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.